Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Welcome to 25th PMI Q&A session. Our today's topic is self-organized teams, and some of the topics or questions that we will be covering would be relevant to servant leadership. Very tricky topic, quite confusing, because most of the time we don't, use these terminologies or these concepts in our day-to-day work. So uh, pay attention to the question and look at it from practical perspective and then try to answer. Okay, let me just share my screen. Let's start with question number 1. All right. So Mohan, you have chosen option D. Why?
Uh, in Agile, right? The team is accountable for the entire team is accountable for the quality of the product or the process. So I think that's why I picked D.
All right. Entire team is responsible for quality of the product. That is why the entire team. Okay, right. So Mohan, according to this, we should not have any roles in Agile, right? Everybody should be just a team member, no? There is no need to have a product owner. There is no need to have a scrum master. There is no need to have team members or developers. What do you think?
Right. Product owner obviously is prioritizing based on the value, right?
Yeah.
The backlog grooming or the product backlog. And Scrum Master is servant leader, right? So there is roles and responsibility defined, but I would think that, for the ultimately for release of the product, increment would be a team's responsibility. I don't know that's
All right. All right. So yes, that's the point that I want to make clear. Like, even if it is self-organized teams, different roles have different responsibilities, right? We'll come to that. Who is responsible for this? But product owner, they have their own role. Scrum master, they have their own role, and team, they have their own role, despite the fact that team is self-organized. Good. Richard,
Hello. I'm sorry I'm late.
no problem.
Uh,
You have chosen option
I
C.
chose I chose option C because I've been reading the Agile practice guide, and
Mhm.
it says that the product owner is heavily involved with the team. So I felt that, and I just briefly read the question, so I'm just like scrambling right now. Software organizer for the Scrum team, who is ultimately responsible for deciding if and when the product increment will be released. So ultimately, the product owner has the overall ownership of the product, and
Mhm.
he will declare when it will be released? I'm assuming this is to public, not necessarily just incremental things. So I'm assuming that the product owner will ultimately have the last deciding factor on whether it will be released to the public.
All right. Thank you, Richard. So product owner is responsible. Rahul, you have chosen option D.
Yeah, sorry, I was confused between C and D, but I felt it reads self-organized team, so which means I just thought maybe its entire team is kind of self-organized and they can decide when to release what. And talking from a practical perspective as well, yes, there are product owners present, but I think if team says, yeah, stuff's not ready, so what can really a product owner do? So it's like, it depends on the team and how the development goes. So that gets decided, when to release. And it's not really humanity's responsibility deciding. It's not really talking about releasing into production or something. I mean, it could be, some internal release or something that as well. So,
All right. But Rahul, someone should be ultimately accountable for that. Someone should have the last say, no? Otherwise, again, the
I mean,
question
yeah,
that I
that would
asked
be,
Mohan,
yeah, that would be, yeah, that would be product owner then, yes. Like I said,
yeah.
it's C or
So
D.
let me just explain it. This is a very tricky question, and a lot of students they struggle when it comes to roles and responsibilities of different actors. So let me try to explain it. When it comes to a product or the entire process, we have three different roles, right? One is for product owner, one is for Scrum Master, and one is for development team. So for example, let's suppose this is team, this is Scrum Master, and the first one is, let's suppose, product owner. Remember, product owner is responsible for product, as the name indicates. So everything regarding product, defining the product, features, backlog refinement, release, right? That is the responsibility of product owner. Scrum Master is answerable for the Scrum process to make sure that process is being implemented in a right way, time boxing, sprints are being conducting, sprint ceremonies are being conducted. And the team is responsible for the work in self-organized team, how to execute the work. What are the steps, right? Coding, testing, right? Verification, peer review, and everything. So despite the fact that team is self-organized, they have their specific roles, right? They are responsible for these different areas. And then you have in the middle, this section, this is for collaboration and coordination, where team members are collaborate with each other regarding. So product owner may seek help from Scrum Master and team regarding backlog refinement. Team can seek help or guidance from Scrum Master and PO regarding understanding of the feature. And Scrum Master can seek help from team and PO regarding the process if they need to extend the sprint length for the next sprint, if they need to add a user story, if they need to remove a user story. So that is for collaboration purposes. So who is ultimately responsible for product release? It's the product owner, right? Even if the team is self-organized, right? Let's read the explanation. All right. Let's move to the next question. All right. So Chinamis, you have chosen C. I have
No,
seen you always choose C because your name starts with C, maybe. Go ahead.
okay. So I wasn't sure of this, but I did elimination technique. Warren here, Scrum Master may work as a developer. No, Scrum Master must not work as a developer. This to A and B, I struck both A and B out. And then it may vary from project to project. Looks like the only reasonable role switching here benefits. So this talks about role switching, talks about the development team, developers, not the Scrum Master. So C looks like the only thing that speaks to Scrum Master here.
All right. So you have used elimination. On which basis you have eliminated A? It says Scrum Master may work as a developer. Do you see any difference between A and C? What is the difference between A and C?
Oh,
I think both are saying the same thing. Scrum Master may work
that's
as a developer, and
yes.
C is also, it may, or it depends on project. So there is no difference between A and C. If you have eliminated A, you have to eliminate C. I'm not sure what is the right answer, but just uh, I'm talking about your logic. All right. Thank you. Okay. So anybody else? Rahul, you have chosen option D.
I'm not sure on this.
Okay. Can you please
It's like
read the last two lines of the question from this ideally? Can you start from here? What does it say?
the team is okay. Ideally, which of the following statements reflects the best practice regarding the role of a Scrum Master as a servant leader? So
Yeah.
I thought maybe he's doing multiple things. That's what made me choose this option because it's like T-shape is like, you are breadth and depth of a person strong in two different aspects. So that's what made me choose that option because the other options were kind of not making much sense.
All right, that's correct. You'll see a lot of such options in the exam, which I call distracting information. It is correct. Role switching benefits T-shaped teams, but it has nothing to do with question. Question says ideally, what's the best practice or what should be the role of Scrum Master? Simple. It has nothing to do with T-shaped individuals. It has nothing to do with role switching. We're talking about ideally, what should a Scrum Master do? Simple. That is the question. So you'll see such options in the exam which are apparently true, but those are not relevant to the question. For example, it's always true, like we should speak truth, right? So it doesn't mean it's the right answer in all situations. If it is not relevant to the question, then we won't be selecting that. So problem with option D is that although it is correct, role switching benefits T-shaped teams or even any team, right? Even if it is T-shaped or I-shaped or anyone, if you switch the role or role swapping helps, but it has nothing to do with the question. Question simply asks, ideally, what should Scrum Master do? So if you read it again, ideally, which of the following statement reflects the best practice regarding the role of the Scrum Master, right? So that is not the right answer. Okay, so let me take one more comment. Manmeet, do you want to say something?
Yes, the only reason I picked option C, having an example that it's a Scrum framework in a software development project, really the Scrum Master's um, idea of putting into the team is wary because it depends on the project. That's why the only idea I have picked is this because it varies project to project. What
For
Scrum
example,
Master is
for
needed where.
on one project, Scrum Master would be a project manager. On
Mhm.
other projects, Scrum Master would be a developer. Third one, Scrum Master could be a product owner. Fourth one, Scrum Master could be a tester, right? This is what you're saying. It varies from project to project. Okay, so the purpose of defining these rules is that they have their specific job responsibilities. Ideally, in an ideal scenario, product owners' responsibilities are different, Scrum Master's responsibilities are different, developers' responsibilities are different. There are three main roles in Agile: product owner, Scrum Master, and development team. And this is what we discussed in the previous question. They have their distinct role, right? And in an ideal situation, they should perform their own role, right? So Scrum Master in ideal situation must not work as a developer because Scrum Master's job is different. It's more like facilitation. It's more like problem solving. It's more like guiding. It's more like teaching Scrum principles, right? So if Scrum Master is working as a developer, then there might be a compromise on the key job of Scrum Master. Correct answer is B. All other options are incorrect. Scrum Master may work as a developer, not ideally because we have three distinct roles. It may vary from project to project. No, switching benefits, it has nothing to do with the question. Okay. Before going to the answer, Lala, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so is Scrum Master another word in Agile for project manager?
No, no.
What is the difference between a Scrum Master and a project manager?
Project manager is an additional role that we add where we need additional collaboration among stakeholders. So project manager is for collaboration purposes, right? Scrum
Yeah,
Master is more towards the technical side of development, assisting team,
I see.
facilitating team in developing the product, right?
So you can have a
Facilitating-
Scrum Master and you can have a project manager.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
correct.
All right, Rahul.
So the question says that the team is having issues, challenges, that the user stories are not clear. But how does that option really solve the problem of clarity with the user stories?
That is distracting information. It has nothing to do with the question, right? Key question starts with ideally which of the following statement reflects. So it doesn't say in this scenario. You understand? We are talking about regardless of the scenario. We're talking in an ideal situation. What is the role of Scrum Master? Right? So we're not discussing about the scenario, whatever it is. So your question actually starts from here. Like in an ideal situation, what's the role of the Scrum Master? So in ideal situation, Scrum Master should work as a Scrum Master, not as a developer. That is the question. Is it clear, Rahul? All right, let's read the explanation. So correct answer is B, and then we'll move to next question. All right, I hope it is clear. Let's move to the next question. All right. So, Manmeet, you have chosen option B.
Yes, because if it's a organized team and they have their own tasks, they collaborate as well. They don't need a leadership to lead them into, team collaboration or task. They already know and they're doing their task. They're collaborating as a team member. They have their own small stations to work on and they don't need a leadership. Leadership is something where the leader has to make the team work, assign tasks and stuff, but they are doing on their own. So I think there's no dedicated leadership required. That's why I picked the answer.
All right. We have servant leadership. Servant leadership is a concept when team is self-organized, right? When team is self-organized, the leader role becomes a servant leader, where leader serves team member. Whenever team is in trouble, leader provides help. So leadership role is required, but the type of leadership would be servant leadership, where autonomy and freedom is given to team members, but you cannot simply eliminate a dedicated leadership. Leadership role would be there, even if the team is self-organized. Okay. So option B can't be correct because one of the aspects of servant leadership is having self-organized teams. Okay, so whenever team is in trouble, whenever team needs guidance, servant leader should be there. So B can't be correct. All right. Francis, you have chosen option C.
Yes, we chose an option C. To be honest, I think I wasn't very sure because all this option really, I tried to eliminate the A because they don't follow a hierarchy structure because they're self-organized. They work, collectively together to develop a product and they make all these decisions. So A was eliminated. Then I went with B. Um, we are talking about the leadership. So B and C, it's almost the same thing. So I was going towards D. However, I realized they don't work independently because they collaborate, work together. So D was also not good option for me based on my opinion. So I therefore went with the C because I thought maybe the team, since they are organized, they can actually operate without a hierarchy, but with a leadership.
All right. And how did you eliminate D?
The reason why I say B, it says self-organized teams don't need a dedicated leadership. There is a
No,
leadership
no, no.
because
D for dog. How did you
D,
eliminate D?
sorry. Okay. The D says they work independently. So that being said, they work together. So they don't work really independently because they're working as a team collectively to produce something.
Correct, absolutely. They don't work independently. They work in collaboration with each other. So this is wrong. So self-organized teams, they don't work independently. They work in collaboration and coordination with each other. So this is wrong. So option D is wrong. Option B, we have already talked about it. Self-organized teams, they don't follow a hierarchical structure, right? And sometimes within the development team, those developers, they don't have specific role, right? So they work without a formal hierarchy. Correct answer is option C. Let's read the explanation. All right, let's move to the next question. All right, Rahul, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, I think we discussed a little ago that Scrum Master is responsible for the process and people don't really report to Scrum Master. Scrum Master is part of the team, and he doesn't really own the product. So it's just so
Absolutely.
process of following the agile practices.
Absolutely. This is what we have just discussed. The question is continuation of the similar concept. Scrum Master is responsible to maintain process. Product owner is responsible to deliver the right product. And team is responsible for the work and self-management. So that is how the responsibility is. So most of you have chosen A, except one or two. So yes, A is the right answer. Let's read the explanation.
Are exam or questions easy like this one?
Yes, this is what I said. Exam would be combination of difficult question, medium level difficulty, and easy question, right? This is an easy question because we have discussed it in detail in first question. If we have not discussed, then maybe this could have been a difficult question for you. But exam would be combination of three different levels of difficulty. In these session, we most of the time we have highly difficult question. That's why most of you struggle and sometimes feel discouraged. I receive messages at the end of the class like, we won't be able to pass the exam if the exam would be like that. So that is not the case, right? This is just for preparation, not an evaluation. All right, let's move to the next question. All right, Anton, you have chosen option B.
Okay. I believe that's the question you asked in your LinkedIn chat. Amara may be wrong, but I believe it is the product owner.
Right. Yes, I have shared this question earlier. I forgot that actually. Okay, I'll be mindful of that. Okay, that's why I'm saying why everybody is choosing, B, 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 B. Okay, right. Yes, so correct answer is product owner. When it comes to product, when it comes to product features, requirements, customer needs, they should talk to product owner because product owner is the right person for that. Okay. If you have any different perspective, feel free to share, right? Don't hesitate. So I can see Alan has chosen option A. Alan, you have chosen option A. Would you like to say something?
Oh no, my bad. It's B.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
right. Let's read the explanation. All right, let's move to the next question. All right, I can see A, B, C. Just waiting for somebody to answer D because maybe the D is the right answer. Okay, right. So Mohan, you have chosen option A.
I guess it's not the right one. I chose option A. I was contemplating between A and B, but then I chose A because I felt like as a Scrum Master, you want to prioritize to understand what the root cause of the issue is. So maybe time boxing might be a good avenue to kind of discuss it in a time box way, and then suggest whether to adjust the team velocity or take corrective measure.
I like the logic, right? Like you're saying, first of all, we need to analyze. And in order to analyze, we need to do time boxing. But the option 8 does not suggest like you're actually scheduling a meeting. So it just says do time boxing. Time boxing, maybe they are already doing that. The question doesn't say like they're not following the time boxing. But yes, if you're right, if question says schedule a time box meeting for analysis, that would be the right answer. But option 8 doesn't say like team is not following time boxing. So this concept is discussed in general terms, like just do time boxing. So your concept is right, but option A does not address that. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right, so Manmeet, you have chosen option B.
Sorry, my phone is being funny. Okay, I picked option B, adjust time velocity, because constantly team is not able to complete the planned user story. So velocity, which I understand using your notes and the book, is the team that can tackle. How do I put this? The amount of work team handles during a single sprint. Is that what velocity is? So if they are failing to do so, we may adjust velocity a little higher or lower according to their average handling time. That's maybe a solution to put them in a to address the situation, maybe. That's
All
what I
right.
thought.
So it says if you are running behind or if you are not winning the race, increase your speed, right? If somebody asks, I'm not winning the race, so you're suggesting, okay, adjust your speed. That is not the right answer, right? Because this doesn't address the question. The question says you're consistently failing to complete or, deliver the user stories. So what you should advise to do. So you can't simply say, okay, start doing more work. If the solution is that simple, team could have done that, right? So adjusting team velocity means doing more work. So that's not the right answer. Does it make sense, Manmeet?
It does. I thought adjustment means maybe higher or lower. You know, I didn't put it in a way that it will add more work to them. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Sorry about that.
No, no need to be sorry. But if you say, okay, lower the team velocity, then it means they would be doing less work. That would complicate the problem, right? Rather than solving it. So that is not the right answer. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's take one more comment. Jacob, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, so Mark, after your explanation, I think it's C, but okay. The reason why I thought A is, just have that time to discuss
Yeah,
what the
absolutely.
problem was. That was my thinking. That's why I chose A.
That's the right thinking, absolutely right. And this is what exactly we are doing in C, scheduling a retrospective meeting to talk about what went wrong. Okay,
Right.
so option C is more specific. Option A,
Gotcha.
it talks about in generic terms like do time boxing, right? Now, time boxing could be in terms of making sure that you start a sprint and you complete a sprint in defined times, right? So time boxing is generic. So correct answer is option C, schedule retrospective, right? Good, because in retrospective, you will be discussing what went wrong, what went right, and what are areas of improvements, how we can improve the situation. Good. Chinamis, do you want to say something?
Yes, please. Two things quickly, Amar. First one is, if I'm looking at schedule retrospective, I know retrospective means discussing on what went wrong, what we did, and stuff like that. But the question here says user stories have not been completed. Planned user stories have not been completed during the last sprints. And I want to believe that they've done 3 retrospectives after each sprint. And the first retrospective, we failed to complete the user story. We asked what happened. Second retrospective, we asked what happened. The third one, we asked what happened. So why I chose adjusting velocities, it looks like they are choosing bigger user stories, a lot of work that they can't finish during the sprint. And if you're able to break these user stories down to manageable size user stories that they can finish within a sprint, it changes their velocity and they're able to finish that within a sprint. That's why I chose B.
All right, so you're saying adjusting team velocity means breaking down user stories into smaller and more manageable work sections, right?
Yes. So yeah, that's my thinking. That's why I chose B. So
Mhm.
if they are choosing the user stories that are not able to finish, you're able to prioritize and break down into user stories that they're able to finish within a sprint. So
Makes
it
sense.
changes the velocity.
Makes sense. But Chinamis, adjusting velocity has nothing to do with breaking down user stories into smaller and more manageable work. Okay? Adjusting velocity means doing more work or less work. So for example, if you're completing 100 story points in one iteration, adjusting velocity means start doing 120, 150, or 70, or 80. It's just how much work you are doing in one sprint. You understand? It has nothing to do with breaking the work into smaller or, dividing the epic or doing story tasking or story slicing. It has nothing to do with that. Okay? Right. Let's read the explanation. So I'll take a comment as well in the chat window. Meanwhile, you read explanation. So one comment is the only thing is after each iteration, we need to do retrospective. We can conduct retrospective at any time, okay? Not just after the iteration. So we can conduct retrospective anytime. It's just a lessons learned documentation meeting where you talk about what went wrong, what went right, and what are areas of improvement. Second comment is adjusting the velocity down would respond to the trend of multiple iterations of actual achievement. Absolutely right. So we adjust velocities based on trends. Actually, we don't adjust velocity, we adjust capacity, right? We don't adjust velocity. Velocity is the actual amount of work that you do. We adjust capacity. Yes, if the question says adjust capacity, that could have been the right answer because capacity is what team is capable of doing. Maybe you are overestimating in the previous iteration. So for example, you say, my capacity is, let me just write it here. My capacity is 100 story points. Okay. Sorry. 100 story points. And in first iteration, you completed 80, then you completed 75, then you completed 80. So you're behind, your target. Now, one option could be review this. Maybe you have overestimated that. But this is capacity, not velocity. Capacity is what team is capable of doing, what you plan to do. Velocity is what you actually accomplish. So you cannot adjust your velocity without adding more resources or doing more work. But in order to increase velocity, you need to do retrospective. You need to understand what's the problem. So in order to understand problem, you need to do retrospective. Okay, Mohan?
So, hey, if you go back to the question, it says which action would you prioritize, right? So, I mean, that's why I thought that, I mean, retrospective to me was, you schedule the retrospective after the the sprint is complete, right? So you really are waiting for the sprint to be complete, and then you do the root cause analysis as to what's going on. So that's why it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, Mohan, this is what I said. First of all, retrospective can be scheduled at any point in time. So it's not just after the iteration, right? Yes, normally we do after the iteration, but it can be done at any point in time. You cannot do time boxing here because it has nothing to do with it. Question doesn't say team is not doing time boxes, right? So option A has nothing to do with it. You understand? There is
Right.
no information in the question that says team is not following time boxing, right? Team is following time boxing, right? For example, they're starting an iteration, then they're completing an iteration. So suggest time boxing is not the solution. Option B, adjust team velocity, right? You cannot adjust team velocity until you analyze like what exactly you need to do. Maybe you need to add more resources. Maybe you need to adjust your capacity rather than 100. You say, okay, we will be doing 80. You're actually doing the right work, but your estimation is wrong. You understand? So you cannot adjust your team capacity. First of all, you need to analyze like if your capacity calculation is accurate or not. If your capacity calculation is accurate, and still you're not able to do or perform the work, then you need to analyze what's going on. So that's why you need to schedule retrospective to see what's going on, to understand the root cause, understand the problem, or for analysis purposes. First of all, that you need to do is schedule retrospective. So this concept is similar to what we have been discussing again and again. Almost in every session, we have a couple of questions in which analysis comes into picture. So option C is correct. All other options are incorrect. Okay. Mohan, does it make sense or you still need any clarity?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, let's move to the next question. All right. Mohan, you have chosen C. Be confident, okay? Don't say I'm confused.
I never say I'm confused. uh, uh, I don't have a good rationale for this, but basically, it seems like it's a software related issue, and for the roles and responsibility, you're saying which statement best reflects this idea. I mean, to me, it didn't make sense. It did not make sense that the Scrum Master should be dictating how to deliver the software, especially for a self-organized team, because there are, specialists and general specialists as well. So, I don't know, that's the only option I thought would be the best.
All right. So you're saying it's not the Scrum Master's job, okay? Right? Rahul, you have chosen option C.
Honestly, not sure. It's confused between B and C. B could be right as well, but yeah, I would go with Mohan. Like, Scrum Master is for setting the processes not to dictate what's right or what's wrong. So it's more for, I think, product owner to really decide something has been incorrectly developed or delivered.
All right. Okay. First part of your explanation is right. Second part is not right. We will be discussing that, right? Because product owner is more about defining what to deliver and when to deliver, right? The question is about quality of the product that that team is working on, right? So the work they are doing, that is more relevant to the team, right? Testing work, what sort of tests they would be doing, how they would be making sure that the work they are producing is of required quality. That is team's domain, that is team's job. So Scrum Master and product owners, they have nothing to do with it. So your first part of explanation is correct. Second is not correct. Even the product owner has nothing to do with that. It's a team job to decide and define how they would be delivering quality product, what activities they would be doing. So your answer is right. The Scrum Master shouldn't dictate how to deliver working software, but the explanation is it's a team job, neither the Scrum Master nor the product owner. All right, let's read the explanation. All right, so correct answer is Scrum Master should not dictate. Let's move to the next question. All right, Francis, you have chosen option D.
I've chosen the option D because I think the monitoring the team's capacity and the velocity should be it's part of the process of food. It's part of the process, which is one of the responsibility of Scrum Master. So that's why I chose D.
You're saying capacity and velocity is part of the process, okay?
Yeah.
Right. Alan, you have chosen option B.
B? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, from my understanding, the servant leader, they make, he let the work, he let the team work by them, but he also needs to verify that they are completing all the tasks in time. So if they have like impediments or something like that, he also need to prevent that to continue working well. So yeah, so it's what I'm understanding.
All right. Thank you. Genemis, you have chosen option A.
Yes, choose option A because first of all, you see servant leader and scrum master. Scrum master is servant leader. That should also tell someone that there's something is wrong with it. So the development team is responsible for choosing, for monitoring their own capacity and velocity. They should be able to say, this is the amount of work that we can handle over this period of time. And then also say, okay, this is the amount, this is the velocity, this is what we've done, this is the number of amount of work we've done over the sprint. So the development team is responsible for monitoring this.
So first you excluded option B and D because they are similar, right? And then you say it's a team job to decide how much work they can accomplish.
They can handle over a sprint, yes.
Absolutely, that's correct. It's a team job to estimate user stories and to define how much work they can commit to in a single user iteration or sprint, right? So correct answer is development team. They define their capacity. They try to match the velocity with the capacity and monitor their performance. So in a self-organized team development team is responsible to do that. So correct answer is option A. Let's read the explanation. All right, let's move to the next question. All right. Very tricky question, I guess. So let me hear from people who have chosen option A. Richard, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, so I mean, I read the question and I understand that things fit, but when I read the guide, B, C, and D are nowhere in the Agile practice guide. The only thing that's in there is talks about cross-functional teams and how well cross-functional teams do. Understanding that, I know B would fit as because they are an autonomous group, but it's like the practice guide continually talks about well-run cross-functional teams that are able to have the breadth and the width. It doesn't talk about anything like self-accountable units or consensus-driven groups. It doesn't talk about that at all. So I'm trying to just go off of what I've read and studied.
All right, so 2 points. First, we're talking about concepts. We're not talking about terminologies, okay? So if a terminology is not given exactly given in the standard, it doesn't mean that couldn't be the right answer, right? So for example, autonomous group, there is a concept of autonomy, right? Very specifically explained in text. So if it is autonomous group or autonomy, it means the same thing. There is a concept of accountability, right? That is very specifically explained. There's a concept of consensus. So we're not talking about names or terminologies, we're talking about concepts. The question says, which characteristics best describe the self-organized teams? So for example, if you're saying A, if a team is cross-functional, it is self-organized. Does it make sense? So for example, right now, we are from different backgrounds. Let's suppose we form a team right now. Rahul, Chinamis, Mohan, Richard, Alan. Would we call this team as self-organized because we are from different backgrounds? We are from different functions? I don't think so. So just being or from different function doesn't make a team self-organized. right? That's why I said it's a very tricky question. Option A can't be the right answer. Just being cross-functional does not make a team self-organized. So A is incorrect. All right, B. Mohan, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, I eliminated the consensus-driven group. I mean, there should be some sort of a diversity in the thought process. So, I mean, so that's why I kind of eliminated that. Self-accountable, y you know, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a good rhyme or reason, but autonomy and that's why I kind of picked B for the best that
Good, good.
describes.
You have done a great job. At least you eliminated two. That's good. So consensus-driven group, it's not always consensus, right? There should be diversity. There should be difference of opinion as well. So they don't always operate based on consensus, right? So yeah, D can't be the right answer. Now we have two options, B or C. So just think it again. Which one you would prefer? If you are the manager or if you are the boss, what sort of team you would be preferring? B or C, okay? So let me take a comment from anyone who has chosen B. Alan, you have chosen option B. Why?
No, I choose C. I choose A.
Oh, okay. I think that is for the previous. Okay, A, I have already explained it. Like simply having a cross-functional team
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's a self-organized team. Okay, Francis, you have chosen option C.
I have chosen option C because I think I did elimination, as you said, there was up to B and the C. So the autonomous groups or teams, they normally operate with very minimal supervision or interference. So, but again, I was like, okay, so if I go with that, but it also in the question it says it had like the team is very adaptable and they're managing so that's why I say okay, instead of them being autonomous, they're just self-countable units because they're able to do everything. That's why I chose C.
Yes, absolutely. So we don't just want to offer autonomy to team member. If you just give autonomy to team member, that doesn't make team self-organized. Yes, if team has autonomy and team is self-accountable, right? They take ownership of the work. They are responsible. They're accountable. That team is called self-organized teams. They decide what to do, how to do, when to do, and then they monitor their work themselves and they are self-accountable. So self-accountability is the right characteristic that defines who are the self-organized teams, right? Correct answer is option C. Let's read the explanation. All right, let's move to the next question. All right. Rahul, you have chosen option B.
I'm not sure who is responsible for resolving conflicts.
Stay confident. It doesn't mean I take
mean,
your name or anybody's name. So that is wrong answer. No, it could be right. Okay.
the thing is, like, I just thought product owner, it's not product owner's responsibility. Product owner's responsibility is to
Mhm.
look over the backlog and delivery and that stuff, not nitty-gritty. Development team, it doesn't self-organize. The question doesn't talk about that this team is self-organized. So I eliminated that one. Project manager, as they oversee the delivery, I'm not sure if project manager is supposed to resolve internal conflicts. So that just left me with Scrum Master, so I chose that.
All right. All right. So your logic is right. Let's figure it out. What's the right answer?
But
So
the answer is wrong.
no, it could be right, but let's talk to somebody else. Maybe we have a different perspective. So, Francis, you have chosen option B. All of you
I
have
was
chosen
not
option B, okay? So,
okay. So I was not audible. So the reason why I chose option B, I think one of the job of Scrum Master is to facilitate the team to enable them to be able to produce.
yeah.
So therefore, if there's a conflict which is impeding the productivity of for the software development, I think the Scrum Master should be responsible to make sure that he's the intermediating between these developers to make sure that it's not affecting his productivity.
All right. So, yes, that is the correct answer. Scrum Master has a role of facilitation and removing impediments, right? One comment to Rahul's answer, even if the question says, let's suppose it's a self-organized team, still the answer would be B, because question says two developers in a team are engaged in a conflict over the implementation. This agreement has escalated to a point where it is hindering the team's productivity and collaboration. So when a problem is escalated to that level, that is, hampering the team's productivity, then Scrum Master should intervene and facilitate the situation, right? So yes, if it is an internal small conflict between two team members and they are self-organized, they would be resolving that internally. Then C would have been the right answer. But since it has been escalated to the point where it is impacting the overall productivity and effectiveness, so that's why correct answer is B, Scrum Master, whose role is facilitating team dynamics and removing impediments to the progress, because it is an impediment to the progress. Correct answer is option B. Let's read the explanation.
I have a quick question. Scrum Master and Project Manager, according to the written book, can be the same. But when we have the exam and when we see questions when involve PM and Scrum Master, we need to refine the activities dedicated to the work directly to the Scrum Master and the servant leader as the servant leader. Just
Yeah,
I'm a
you're
little bit
right.
confused with that.
So if you see two roles in the question, it would clearly explain Scrum Master is a different role, Project Manager is a different role, right? So both have different roles and responsibilities. Scrum Master looks after the technicalities and, the resolution or removing impediments. And Project Manager is more for generic collaboration and, progress monitoring and engagement and communication purposes. So when you see servant leader, so servant leader is associated with Scrum Master. Okay. Alan, have
Okay,
I
thank
answered
you.
your question?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. So, right. So first time I got 7. Okay. Right. So that's good. If you have any issue, any problem you're facing, for example, you're not able to get good scores in these mock exam, you're not able to study or anything, you can schedule a one-on-one 15 minutes meeting with me, and we can discuss like how we can adapt and we can, come up with a strategy that could be helpful to pass the exam, right? Or any issue regarding PMP exam, if you have, you can schedule a meeting with me. All right. So anyone who scored 10 out of 10 today? 9, 7, 8, 7. Okay. Couple of people scored 7, 6. Very nice. 5. Good. 4. Okay, right. I'm happy you're making good progress. If you're getting 6, 7, 8 in these mock exams, these sessions, you're on the right track. Okay. Anything less than 6 is a sign of worry, right? That you need to consider. And I want to tell you one more thing. One of my students attempted the exam last week. She didn't read the book, right? And she didn't even solve the mock exams. And she was of the view, like, if she could attend these sessions, she would be able to pass the exam. Absolutely not. These sessions only would not help you pass the exam. One of the ideas behind these sessions is to keep you guys motivated. You know why 20 people took exam this month? Just because of these sessions. Prior to March, only 1 or 2 people they used to write the exam. I teach more than 100 and 150 students every month, and only 1 to 2 or 3 or 4 used to write the exam. This month, 20 people wrote the exam just because of these sessions, because it gives you a motivation, like you're saying, okay, something is happening, let's join. So you study. If you score less, you get anxious. So this is one of the benefits of these lessons. But this does not mean by joining these sessions only you will be able to pass the exam. You have to read the book, or if you're don't like to read, you have to go through the class notes, you have to go through the slides, you have to go through the content. Ignoring the content and directly going to the exam would not help you at all. And I have given you an example. And her score was, unfortunately, that was around 20%. It was shocking for me to see how one can score 20%. And then I asked her, okay, did you solve mock exams? Did you read the book? She said, no, I was just attending your session and I was like, I'm prepared. And then I asked how much you were getting in my mock exam. She said 4 or 5. And I said, who told you, like, with 4 or 5, without reading a book, without mock exam, you're ready to write the exam? So please don't make this mistake. And another problem I'm facing is a couple of students failed exam because of they were not able to manage the time. So time management was an issue, right? So please focus on time management. You have mock exams, do timed quizzes. First of all, my strategy is simple. Go through the book at least once. If not the book, go through the PowerPoints or the notes at least once or twice, then solve mock exam. If you get 70% in mock exams, feel free to schedule your exam. Simple strategy. So I'm repeating it because a couple of students, they ignored this and unfortunately they failed. So out of 20 people, 17 passed exam, 3 failed. 1 failed because she didn't study, 2 failed because of time management, right? 17 people passed exam. So if 17 can pass, you can also pass exam, right? That's all. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself. I'll see you on Friday, right? For an interesting lesson. Take good care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Amar.
Thank you,
Thank
Amar.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Amar.